All right, welcome back. Finally, we are MDEV1004. That's Mobile APIs and Frameworks, and it's summer 2024 semester at Georgian, and it's week 10, part 5 of our broadcast and recording. And this part was done on Friday, so that's the next day after our internet outage that I had, as well as we had a major worldwide outage, so that prevented me from doing different things. But anyways, what I wanted to do, last we left off, we finished the Android portion, and now I'm going to switch back to the Mac because I have access. So here we go. Let's do the Mac part. So back to our lovely Mac. So this is where we were last time. And just to review where we are right now, if I was to run this app, let's just run it. Then you're going to see that we can log in. And let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We can log in now, no problem. That'll take us to the list. This is the list. We have a log out button, so we can log out, which will take us back out. The problem we don't have now is we can't add a movie and we can't modify a movie. I can't do this. So if I was trying to modify this, this would fail. And the reason why this would fail is because we haven't put in all the piece parts that are required for JWT security to work. So we're going to put all those parts back in now. So that's what it was. But I can definitely log out. So that's something that I can do, right? And logging out, well, sorry, we were supposed to be able to log out, but the logout function, which is inside of our activity here, which is in this case our movie controller, isn't working yet. So let's just get that functional. So again, if I was going to go to main to our movie view controller, this one, then we don't really have a connection. I was creating that connection when we get disconnected. There we go. So that's where I am with it. So you can see we have delete movie, we have our add button, but we really don't have our a button for us logging out. So we have to do that as well. Let's do that now. So we're going to do all those things first. All right, so let's do that. And I'm thinking about, so this is the view did load. And here's our display error message, and here's fetch movies. We're not going to touch these ones, but I definitely want to put something in maybe just below everything else. So just way down here, let's say down here is where I want to do it. And the way we're going to do that is I'm going to go back to the main storyboard, and I'm going to go to the, we are right now in the assistant editor, but what I want to do is for the main storyboard, I want to go back to this controller right here, and when I click this controller, then we'll see that we're at the bottom, right? So what I want is when I kind of control drag from here to the bottom, and then I'm going to add in our logout button pressed event. So say logout button pressed, right? And it's of type button. There's a UI button, and then we'll connect that one. So that's the logout button pressed event. We need that because otherwise this has, this is no control. We had the button, but we didn't do anything with it. So that's kind of where we were last time. And yes, let's just make sure we have everything in place while I'm checking my notes. So yeah, so now this is where it becomes special. Right, and so now that we've made that connection, I'm just going to come off of the assistant editor, and then we're going to go back to the movie view controller. And down in here in the code now, what we can do is we can start putting in stuff that we want to do. We want to do, remember, logging out online, just like we talked about from an Android perspective, doesn't happen. Like we can't expire the token. All we can do is do our management on our own. So what we're going to do is we're going to say user defaults. And this is where we're storing everything. We're going to say standard, and we're going to remove object, right? Move object for key auth token. So this is actually removing the token altogether, right? So that's the first thing we have to do. So this is going to get rid of the token when we have it. Okay, we've already put it in here. So that's what this does. This is remove the token from user defaults, which is like our share preferences. Or local storage example, that's what it is, right? And this will indicates a logout. That's what this does. And so what we want to do here is now we want to clear the username and password in the login view controller, because remember we had that set up so we could clear it up. And so we're going to say API login view controller dot shared. Remember we had that shared object, and we're going to clear login text field. So that's going to take care of that. It's also going to do stuff. Now this is where we're going to be performing the unwind, and we're going to say unwind. And when we're going to do that, we're going to say perform segue. So here's the segue. Let's do this properly. Perform segue with identifier, and the identifier is going to be unwind to login. Okay, unwind to login, and then the sender is going to be self. Okay, so that's what that's going to do. Now, identifier unwind to login. Remember, I know it's kind of a day since I've recorded this. You might be watching this all at once, or maybe in broken pieces, but let's talk about this a little bit. How does the unwind work? If I go back to main storyboard, there is no connection that you're seeing here. Okay, so you know, we're going to go back to this right here, right? And our API login view controller, you can see that there's no segue here, right? And we need to kind of create that connection, right? And so to create an unwind connection, what we need to do is drag from the logout to the exit button of the API login view controller. Now that's kind of tough sometimes. I found it always tough to do, right? So, so here's the logout button. So let's click the logout button. And then we need to make sure that the login view controller is fine. See this exit right here? This is the great thing about this. You can actually control drag from here all the way to here. And then it's going to say, what do I want to do? I want to unwind to login view controller. And then once I've done that, right, it creates this segue. And that segue, right, if I was to look at it, right, you can see that the identifier is something that we can put in place. So you can't actually see the segue. There's no like actual physical connection that you can see, like a line. But what we actually can do is we're going to do an unwind. And so going back to our movie view controller, we can grab this unwind to login, copy it, and then go back to our main storyboard. And when we click on this, we can actually put that in there. There's the identifier. And this is tricky. All right, so again, what I did was I kind of dragged from, control drag from the logout all the way to the exit of our movie API or our API login view controller. And what this does, it basically comes back to here. And that's what creates the unwind. And that's how that works. Okay, so going back to that, just to go through it again, this unwind to login, you know, unwind to login view controller. Well, the way that works is we had to set that up ahead of time, remember, in the API login view controller. So API login view controller, I had this empty IB action, which we called unwind to login view controller. This was set up before we did anything. Okay, that's what we did. And it comes back to here. All right, so that's what happens. And I just wanted to make sure that that is finished. So I'm going to go back to our, I'm going to go back to that previous in my notes here. Seconds. And I want to go there. We got some serious issues with our internet today, my friends. With the global outage, it looks like lots of connectivity is down. Anyway, so but we can test this. Let's try to test this out. So if we run this thing now, and then if I do again admin, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then we should be able to log in. And then if I click log out, it should take us here, and notice that username is highlighted, which is very good. That's exactly what we want to do. Okay. So what I was saying is in the login view controller, and the login view controller, the only thing this is doing right now is just clearing our login text fields. Okay, so that's what it's doing. Now we need to fix up in order for us to do full CRUD, that's a different thing, and that has to be done in the movie view controller. This one again. So the movie view controller, and sorry, there's two parts to it, right? When we modify the movie view controller, we've added this piece, right? But what we also want to add is we also want to add in the pieces where if I'm going to log in, then we're going to have the ability for us to get the token, to retrieve the token itself. Okay, so that's what we need to do. And for that, that means we have to modify the fetch movies method. And the fetch movies method is here. Notice that we said for next week, we're going to retrieve the token. That's what I put in here. So just going from the top. So we're using a completion closure. The completion closure is happening at the top here. And what we do is we set up a movies object. This is the movies object with the array. And then the movies object is we're checking to see if it's empty. And if it's empty, then there's no movies that are available. We know that there's movies available. We reload the data and all this kind of stuff happens. And this is all complete. We display error messages, but this part, fetch movies, is where we're missing that little piece. So let's put that in. So what we want to do here, let's rename this. We're going to retrieve the auth token from user defaults. This is where it's coming from, right? Because we log in, we get it, we save it, and let's do that. So we're going to say guard let, and we're going to do auth token. We're going to say that's the auth token is equal to user defaults dot standard dot string, and we're going to say for key, and we're looking for auth token. Auth token. Make sure we spell this correctly. It has to be the exact same every single time. Auth token, otherwise we'll be in trouble. And then we're going to say else if that's not true. If we can't retrieve it somehow, then we're going to print something like, for us only, again, auth token not available. So maybe it cannot be retrieved or whatever. And we're going to say, we're going to have a completion that's going to be nil, which is going to basically say we're not getting anything, we'll return. However, if everything goes well, that's what the guard let is. Auth token is something that we're going to have. Now we haven't used it yet, we've just retrieved it, right? So we retrieve it, we configure the URL request with the proper kind of thing for us to get the movie. This is getting the movie list itself, and the part that's missing is the authorization part. So remember, we're making the request, and so when we make the request, right, this is the piece we need. See this where it says for authentication, we need another step? Well, here's the part that we need. So after we do this part, we need to make a request object. We're going to say var request, and we're going to say it's equal to a URL request object, which is the URL here. This is what we want to do. And so we're going to pass in the URL we just made. This is this piece right here. This is to go to there. And then what we want to do is we want to say that the request.http method is going to be equal to the get request. So this is just in case you want to do that. And then request.set value. And the set value is going to be here. This is important. Bearer. So we're going to use the bearer token, just like we've done when we use Postman, right? And we're going to put in the auth token in here. So auth token, there we go. And then it says for HTTP header field, and this has to be special, where it's authorization. I have to spell it right. If you don't spell this right, anything can happen. So authorization is where it's going to go. So this is the requested value, okay? Shared data task remains the same. That's all good to go. Guard let, we're going to get the data if there's an entry response, and then we do the response, okay? And so the response comes in, and we say, now we haven't used this. So even though, just to let you know, even though we've made the request, this request object, right, and we set the value, we kind of set the header. That's what this has. We make a request, we basically push the header into the bearer token. That's what we're doing here. But notice here in this part, we're not actually using it anywhere. All right, so that's what's happening. So we're just actually making the request right here. This piece right here is the only part we need for authorization when we do listing. If somehow the list was protected, now we'd be able to read it. So we got the same thing for adding, right? So we're able to view, but what about if we press the add button? Well, the add button is going to take us to the to the details controller, right? Which is basically, if we look here, we have the add edit CRUD API controller, this one, right? Which is the next one. And this is where we do most of the stuff, right? However, what we can do is, if we go to the movie view controller here, we can do the deletion piece. So the deletion piece happens down in here. So we have our table view controller, and if I'm going to do any kind of delete request, that's something that I have to do here. So delete movie, here we create the URL string, that's all correct. Here's part of the request, but for next week, we're missing a token here. We need to do that token stuff as well. And what we need to do is, we're going to say requests, and we're going to say HTTP, the set value, just like we did before, set value. And we're going to do bearer again. And we want to be able to do that same thing, but remember, we can't sub in the auth token unless we get it somehow. So here, we need to get the auth token first. And the way that's going to be is, we're going to say guard let, and we're going to say auth token. Now, we could have done this somewhere else. We could have another service for this, which we could definitely set up, but I didn't do it that way when I programmed this, right? So it's up to you. Maybe there's going to be a better way to do this, right? That I probably could refactor my code a little bit to make it a little bit better, right? Because I think there's still some auth token, we'll say, not available. Just kind of how we did before, and then we'll return. So if we can't do it, get out. But if we can do it, now we have the auth token, and now we can kind of put in here, inside the bearer, we can say auth token, right, is what we want to say. And then for the string, like we said before, the string has got to be authorization. Authorization. It's got to be the exact letters here. Okay, so again, we've done the request, we've made the request object, we've done a delete request, and then the rest stays the same. We kind of do the remove, we do all that kind of stuff, but then we're good to go. So that is pretty much everything we need for the movie view controller. Let's put this up on GitHub. So we're going to say something like, well, now one thing we have to do, because we worked on the other computer, is we need to do a git pull. So git pull, because remember that, sorry, let's go up one. And if I go to MDEV, actually let's do it ls. And if I do cd MDEV1004 M2024 ICEs, we're in there now. Let's do a git pull, right? Because we did do ICE 9 Android here, and I don't have that on my system. I have it on the other system. So here what we're going to do is, now we're going to do a git add dot, git commit -m, and we'll say added authentication components to our movie view controller for iOS. Okay, so we did, and then git push, and you're going to see that we're going to push those pieces up. So we should be mostly up to date for the iOS side. All right, so that is us deleting. We can delete now. We can't really add. We can list if we have to list, and if it was protected, we can get there. We need to do now the add edit view controller, which is going to happen here. And the add edit view controller is something that we're going to do the same thing with. So remember how we do that. We kind of go here and we want to add movie. And here we have the URL string and the request type. And the request type with put and post and all those kind of things are the things that we want to kind of do. This is kind of where we want to go with. And I'm just going to wait for my internet again. Isn't this a lovely thing that we're experiencing today in this global outage? It's amazing. GitHub is affected, all kinds of. I think what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to extend you guys until Monday for both things, but only because of this day we've lost kind of internet, and I don't want you. If I'm experiencing this, and chances are, well, it's not internet necessarily. It's just some weird connections with Blackboard. I've seen that. I've seen weird connections with mail and a bunch of other things. And I think it's better that just to be safe, we push things out a little bit. Okay, let's just make sure we get back there and see if I can do that. So yeah, because I'm getting intermittent kind of intermittent outages with the stuff that I want to do with you here, which is fine. It's just, you know, so again, in the update button, when the update button is pressed, see where it says this part? It's the same thing. So we're going to retrieve auth token, and we're going to do the same thing. So guard lets, and we're going to say auth token. In actual fact, what we can do is we can copy and paste from our movie view controller here, because we have the same thing. This part right here is what we're doing, this part. So I'm going to copy that one. I'm going to go back to our add edit part here and just put that in. So we have access to the auth token. That's the first part. We need that. And then after we have that part in there, then when we complete our request, like first of all, we're configuring our request here. That's what we're doing here. And we're checking to see if we can make the URL. We create the movie object, right? That's what it is with all the piece parts. And then we actually start filing in the request. Well, the last part that's missing is this authentication piece, which we've seen here, right? Which is this part. So we're just going to grab this part right here and I copy it. And again, there is some duplication. I'm not happy with that, but maybe we can have a separate class that basically does this piece, the actual request piece itself, right? But for now, this is going to be okay, right? So then we do the body of the request, and this is going to be depending on the type of request, whether we're updating or adding, it's going to be the same thing, because remember the request is depending on the request type, right? We form out the request for both updating, you know, depending if we're putting, right? We have two different URL strings. We're depending on if the movie exists, then the request type is a put, and the URL string is this. If the movie does not exist, then the request type is post, and the URL string is this. And then what we do is we form up the URL itself, and then we come back and do all this other stuff, right? So at the end of the day, everything that we've done when we kind of set up this piece, right, kind of sets up everything that we need for us to do the request. Okay, so this is it. That's all we really need to do to complete our thing. Let's test it now. So again, one thing we want to do is make sure that this is not timed out, and it's not. And then now we can go and relaunch our application. Let's do that. So relaunch everything. There it is. Let's log in. And we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll log in again. And now we will add a new movie. Let's add that in. So we'll add a movie. We'll say the movie's ID is, I don't know, 15. The title is going to be Godzilla -1. Studio, I don't know. Offhand, let's say genre, monster movie. And an action. Director, good Japanese director. Because, you know, off the top of my head, I don't know. Writers, the same. Writer, we're going to delete this in a second. Writer, right? And then actors, you know, great actor 1 and great actor 2. We're going to, just for this length is going to be, I don't know, 120 minutes. Year is 2023. Movie description, we're going to say that an awesome monster movie. Oop, we spelled that wrong. And MPA rating, we're going to say is PG-13, just randomly. And critics rating, we're going to say is 8.6. Okay, let's see if we can add this. Add. And if everything goes well, there's Godzilla -1. Just it's a duplicate, right? Because that's what I did. And then we added it. This is good. This is it's showing what we've done here. And this is fantastic, right? So notice we've also got some printing that we're doing down here to confirm what we've done. And now what I want to do is I want to update it. So Godzilla -1, we'll say Godzilla -2. Can we update? And then we say updates. There it is, Godzilla -2. And now we want to delete it. So we're going to go here. And remember that for the delete method, you know, we have an update. How do we delete? We swipe, right? So we swipe here and we click delete. There's a little thing that comes up that says, are you sure? And if I say yes, then Godzilla -2 has been deleted. And if we go back to here and we refresh, you can see there's no additional movies that have been added. That's pretty good, right? So we've done full credit. And we know this is working because yesterday, when I was recording the stuff for Android, we activated JWT. Okay, my friends, guess what? This is it. That's all we needed for our iOS component. We're so close before I drop my connection. Terrible things happen. So let's put this up on GitHub. So we're going to say git commit -m, and we'll say, you know, added security components for updates and deletes. Update, add and update. Add and updates. Okay, well, it's really create an update. Create and updates. We actually have the security components for everything because we did that, and then we'll do a git push, and that really is everything you need for your iOS version. Okay, so that's really good. What we've got there. Yeah, and that's really it for this week. Finally, we were able to complete this part. And this is it. We've got full credit. This will give you everything you need for assignment 4, right? Which is what this whole thing was supposed to be. So just some housekeeping issues, because I want to make sure that we're on track. Again, assignment 3, it was supposed to be due this week. I'm going to move it out one day. I want to show you that. And I'll make a small announcement about this because of the internet outage, my internet outage, as well as the global outage that we had. So I'll probably move this out. We released assignment 4, that's due week 13, so you've got a few weeks to do that. Next week, what we're going to do is we're going to come back and do an intro to payment gateways, Stripe and PayPal, which is really cool. We'll reinsert, it actually injects a payment user interface into our application. And we may do that for a couple of weeks. We'll see how that goes. I may change this week to a special topic. We'll see how that goes as well. And then deploying to other deployment options we'll look at. So there's a few more 3 more in-class exercises, and we'll try and make them so they're interesting. And then finally, the final test, which is going to happen on week 14. So guys, really happy, hopefully, that we finished this. And again, apologies for all the delays, but it is what it is, right? So here it is. And I'll stop recording now, and I'll make the announcement on Blackboard and Discord. Okay, see you guys soon. And hopefully you guys are all doing well, and you went through it without too much